The Biden administration is investigating smart car parts made in China for potential risks to national security. The Commerce Department says it could lead to restrictions on foreign-made parts in the U.S.
The investigation reflects growing concern that countries could exploit navigation data or connections to car charging stations to collect intelligence or sabotage infrastructure. Michigan Congresswoman Debbie Dingell expressing her concern about these parts. In a statement, she says, quote, Chinese automakers have already deployed their autonomous vehicles here and are using them for surveillance and to collect data. Meanwhile, American vehicles on their own streets are banned.
Joining us tonight is automotive journalist Paul Eisenstein, editor-in-chief of Headlight.News. Thanks for being here today.
Good to be with you.
So what is happening here?
Sounds like a movie.
Yeah.
You have to remember that today's cars are becoming smarter and smarter, especially now that a lot of automakers are talking about putting artificial intelligence in their vehicles. You have a few things. There are all sorts of sensors, including cameras. The Chinese have already gotten concerned about exactly the same thing. They've banned Tesla vehicles, at least they had for a while, from going near any sensitive installation in China. They were afraid that we could wind up capturing data showing where, for example, missiles or troops are. And we know that in turn, the Chinese have been doing a lot of cyber testing, if you will, of the weak points in America, whether it be cracking into the Pentagon or cracking into utilities where potentially if there were some sort of war between us, if it got real hot, they might be able to shut down our infrastructure. At least that's the argument that the Biden administration and others. It's not a partisan issue here. A lot of folks are concerned about it, especially because the Chinese are clearly looking, finally, after about 15 years of saying they're coming, they're looking like they're finally going to get into the United States. They're already in Europe, and they are gaining traction there very, very quickly.
Wow. There are so many benefits to having that technology introduced into vehicles. I know you got to see a lot of them for yourself.
Oh, yeah.
You traveled. What are some of the dangers of having that kind of equipment in a vehicle? What is the exposure risk for us?
Well, that's the big question everybody asks. We know about how much the average consumer is at risk of being hacked, whether it be having identity theft or potentially, if somebody wanted to, they can shut it down. We've seen hospitals all over the country shut down by ransomware and the like. Well, what happens? And I'm saying what if here. I'm not saying it will or has happened, but what if an enemy of the U.S. decided, hey, we're going to use cars to surveil what's going on, or perhaps they decide, hey, we're going to take all the cars that we know how to get into their connected car technology, and we're going to shut them down, basically tying up the roads all across America.
Terrifying to think about. About a year ago, there was that Chinese spy balloon. We, in the end, learned it was a spy balloon. Authorities shot it down. There was a lot of concern and even mild panic over that. It seems like that would be a small issue compared to many vehicles on the road.
Yeah, it is a potentially serious one. We see the Chinese coming into Europe, and they're already making major inroads. They'll be selling perhaps 1 million or more vehicles there this year and next. What happens if you have the same thing happening there? Now, I have to point out that while we have not seen any Chinese branded company sell vehicles in the U.S., we already do see a few Chinese cars in the United States, several vehicles from Volvo, which people think of as a Swedish car company. It's actually owned by Zhejiang Geely out of China. And Buick, which is a much larger brand, believe it or not, in China than in the United States, has brought some vehicles in, and the brand new Envision will be coming in from China. Now, I have to say there are other reasons why you'll find a lot of the car companies not unhappy if the Chinese are banned from the U.S. One reason, there's a lot of fear that they will be able to bring vehicles in at a much lower cost and undercut the U.S. automakers who, as you know, are struggling to bring down prices because high prices have limited the growth of the EV market.
Now, if there were some kind of hacking situation, what exactly would that look like? Also, do you think this conversation in itself is part of the reluctance that we see from so many
company, but the Envision that Envision is not? Virtually every car that's new to the road right now has what's called over-the-air technology, OTA technology. It's very much like your smartphone. It means that somebody on the other end, in this case manufacturers, can send updated software. They can add features, they can, in many cases, they can fix a recall. Tesla does this all the time. If there's a recall involving software, they can fix it without you having to go into a dealer repair shop. That's a good thing. But if somebody, a bad actor, tries to get in, and China, with some of the companies, you know, a lot of their automakers have direct ties to the government. That's what really scares people.
So the president is saying he wants to take unprecedented steps to safeguard Americans' data. What will that look like?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think they don't know yet what happens. Conceivably, they could go in and look at the software technology that's in those vehicles, try to understand whether there are some back doors that could be used to, say, take control of the vehicle, short out the vehicle, be used for surveillance. But of course, it's always difficult to know if there isn't some code buried somewhere in a vehicle that the Chinese government could exploit.
Yeah. It sounds like in the wrong hands, this could be incredibly dangerous.
It can, but to your point earlier, it is a very important thing. I mean, it's a great thing for consumers to have connected car technology. There's a lot of safety benefits. For example, you can program these cars, and this is going to be happening more and more, so that you come around a blind corner or a bad intersection. Somebody's ready to run the light. Your car, just before you run the light, could send a signal out to my car, which has the green light to go through, advising my car to hit the brakes without even notifying me as a driver. So there's a lot of benefits to this technology. But as we've seen as consumers with the internet, there's a good side and there's a bad side.
Yeah, we'll be standing by to see any developments with this. In the meantime, as an average consumer potentially driving one of these vehicles, is there anything to do at this point?
No, not really. The good part is the automakers, there have been no signs of hacking, except under very dedicated laboratory situations. So far, all the technology on board has been working as planned. The automakers are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to develop ways to prevent hackers from getting into the vehicles. The difference could be if those vehicles are coming from countries that have a very, very vested interest in being able to hack them in a time of war.
Scary stuff.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for being here and breaking it down for us today, Paul.
Thank you.
This is Paul Eisenstein from Headline.News.